When former U.S. President Donald Trump speaks about his foreign policy record, one of his most repeated claims is that he ended 6 wars. It is a statement that has been echoed across his speeches, interviews, and campaign rallies, often framed as proof of his unique approach to diplomacy and his desire to end what he calls America's endless wars. But how accurate is this claim? Did Trump truly end 6 wars, or is it a political exaggeration rooted in selective framing of events? To understand this, it is essential to examine Trump's foreign policy legacy, the conflicts he inherited, the actions he took, and what the outcomes really were. Trump entered the White House in January 2017 inheriting a United States deeply entangled in conflicts across the Middle East, South Asia, and Africa. From Afghanistan and Iraq to Syria and Yemen, American troops, intelligence operations, and military funding played central roles in wars that had already lasted for years. Trump's campaign had promised a different path, an America First foreign policy that would prioritize U.S. interests, reduce military interventions abroad, and bring American soldiers home. For many voters weary of foreign wars, this was a compelling message. One of Trump's most significant actions was his handling of the war in Afghanistan, America's longest-running conflict. When Trump took office, U.S. forces were still heavily engaged in fighting the Taliban. After years of negotiations, Trump's administration reached a landmark deal with the Taliban in February 2020 in Doha, Qatar. The agreement included a timeline for the withdrawal of American troops in exchange for Taliban guarantees to prevent Afghanistan from becoming a safe haven for terrorist groups. While the final withdrawal happened under President Joe Biden in 2021, it was Trump's agreement that set the stage for ending America's direct involvement in the Afghan war. Supporters point to this as proof of his claim, though critics argue he did not truly end the war since fighting between Afghans themselves continued. In Iraq and Syria, the focus was the battle against ISIS. By the time Trump assumed office, the Islamic State had carved out a caliphate across vast swaths of territory. Trump promised to crush the group quickly, and under his administration, U.S.-led forces intensified their campaigns. By late 2019, ISIS's territorial caliphate was largely dismantled, and its leader Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi was killed during a U.S. raid. Trump declared victory, saying America had ended the war against ISIS. However, military experts caution that ISIS remains a dangerous insurgency, and U.S. forces are still present in Iraq and Syria to this day. For Trump's narrative, though, the territorial defeat of ISIS counted as one of the wars he claimed to have ended. Another theater often included in Trump's count is Yemen. The war in Yemen, a brutal proxy conflict between a Saudi-led coalition and Houthi rebels, drew international criticism for its humanitarian toll. When Trump took office, the U.S. was providing military support, arms sales, and intelligence to Saudi Arabia and its allies. Though Trump did not formally end U.S. involvement, he did reduce some forms of direct assistance. At the same time, he vetoed bipartisan congressional resolutions that sought to halt American support entirely. Critics argue Trump did not end the Yemen war at all, but supporters claim his scaling back of U.S. engagement represented a form of disengagement from yet another foreign conflict. Trump also points to his efforts in Libya. The U.S. had been militarily involved in Libya since the 2011 NATO intervention that toppled Muammar Gaddafi, leading to years of chaos and civil war. Under Trump, Washington played a far smaller role. He avoided deeper military involvement and signaled his desire for regional actors to take responsibility. While Libya's conflict was far from over, Trump presented his restraint as effectively ending U.S. participation in the war. Somalia, too, is often counted among the 6 wars Trump claims credit for ending. The U.S. had long conducted counterterrorism operations against the al-Shabaab militant group. In late 2020, Trump ordered the withdrawal of most U.S. troops from Somalia, declaring that America should not remain endlessly entangled in wars abroad. Though the Biden administration later redeployed some forces, Trump's supporters regard the Somalia drawdown as another war brought to an end under his leadership. Beyond the specific conflicts, Trump emphasizes his record of avoiding new wars. Unlike several of his predecessors, Trump did not launch large-scale U.S. invasions or commit American forces to new prolonged conflicts. He frequently cites this as proof that he kept America out of World War III, and avoided escalation despite flashpoints such as tensions with Iran and North Korea. In January 2020, when the U.S. killed Iranian General Qasem Soleimani in a drone strike, the world feared war was imminent. Yet Trump stopped short of launching a broader conflict, framing his decision as tough but restrained leadership that prevented another endless war. Yet, the claim that Trump ended 6 wars remains contested. Many analysts argue that while he reduced U.S. involvement, he did not truly bring these wars to a close. For instance, the Taliban still fought Afghan government forces after his deal, ISIS continues insurgent attacks, Yemen's war has raged on, and Somalia remains unstable. In other words, while Trump may have limited U.S. military engagement, the conflicts themselves persisted. Another layer of criticism points to how Trump often exaggerated or reframed events to suit his narrative. Declaring victory over ISIS was popular politically, but it oversimplified the ongoing threat. Claiming to have ended the Yemen war downplayed America's continued arms sales to Saudi Arabia. Even in Afghanistan, Trump's deal was controversial, with many experts saying it empowered the Taliban without securing real peace. Still, Trump's foreign policy record is notable for its contrast with past administrations. George W. Bush launched the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq. Barack Obama oversaw interventions in Libya and escalations in drone warfare across multiple countries. Trump, despite his fiery rhetoric, generally favored disengagement. His willingness to negotiate directly with adversaries, from the Taliban to North Korea's Kim Jong-un, underscored his unconventional approach. Whether or not he truly ended 6 wars, Trump undeniably shifted U.S. policy toward scaling back overseas commitments. For his supporters, the distinction between ending America's role and ending the war itself is less important. They see Trump as the first president in decades to seriously attempt to withdraw from foreign conflicts and to resist the pressure of Washington's military establishment. His base often frames this as proof of his independence and strength. For his critics, however, Trump's claim is misleading, an example of his tendency to overstate achievements. They argue he left behind fragile agreements, abandoned allies, and failed to secure lasting peace in any of the regions where he reduced U.S. involvement. Ultimately, the truth lies somewhere between the extremes. Trump did not definitively end 6 wars. None of the conflicts he cites are fully resolved, and several remain ongoing humanitarian disasters. But he did mark a significant shift in U.S. foreign policy by moving toward disengagement, scaling back troop presence, and prioritizing negotiation over intervention. In that sense, his presidency represented a break from the era of expansive American militarism that had defined the early 21st century. As Trump continues to campaign and speak about his record, the narrative of ending 6 wars will remain a powerful talking point. It resonates with Americans tired of costly foreign interventions and weary of headlines about wars far from home. Whether history will ultimately credit him with achieving peace, or merely stepping back while conflicts burned on, is a question that will continue to shape debates about his presidency and about America's role in the world. Trump's legacy on war and peace may not be neatly summarized in the phrase, ending 6 wars. But it does highlight the growing public demand for restraint in U.S. foreign policy, a demand that transcends political lines and reflects a nation still grappling with the consequences of decades of war. In that respect, Trump's rhetoric, whether exaggerated or not, speaks to a deeper truth about America's shifting posture on the world stage.